All right, everybody, welcome back to the ATB NFL Draft Show with Dalton and Jake. This time, we do got him on, like we said we would this time around. So, welcome, Jake. You get to be part of probably the least fun episode, at least in terms of the prospects we'll be talking about.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, this is the quarterback episode. You got to start off with the quarterbacks. Usually, that's fun. It's a little fun at the top, I would say, but I don't know if we're gonna have a whole lot of exciting things to say about the rest of our top group here. So, what do you think,
Yeah.
Dalton?
It's just it's an ugly class. Like I'm trying to really think. I mean, it's probably as bad as I would say it's at the top. It's right around as bad as we've seen in years. But what's really bad about this class is the depth. Like
Yeah, that's the bigger
the drop
problem.
off
The
is
the
significant.
definition of top heavy.
Yeah.
Literally, like there's two guys I think we're going to talk about today that we think have a shot at being first round picks and likely first round picks. Outside of that, thanks to some news today about guys like Drew Aller, and we heard the same about Garrett Nussmeier as well, like guys like that were getting some buzz at least, aren't going to be in this class. So it's certainly a bit of a blow to what could have been at least a somewhat deep group of guys at the top, but not as deep as we've seen in
Yeah.
recent
And
years.
even the top guys this year, like there isn't
Yeah.
like I don't think there's anyone that we really think is likely going to be in a like that we feel really good is going to be an elite quarterback in this league.
Yes. That's the other problem too. Is I'm not sure how many of these guys, like even the top two guys, are gonna be guys that we view as potential top 10 players at their position. Which normally when we're talking about first round quarterbacks, that's kind of what you hope the ceiling is. I don't know if that's really realistic for especially one of these guys, but even both of them really to me, it'd be a pretty big leap to get them into that conversation. So we'll see. Obviously, what could the future holds for these guys? Some of these guys that we don't like as much could end up surprising us, but realistically, it's a lot of I'll say mid to be nice. Let's say that, right? Because even mid might be a little bit too much for some of the guys we're going to talk about today. But we do have a top eight. Normally, I want to do a top 10 quarterbacks, and we will talk about some guys outside of our top eights. But this class, I felt like top eight was good enough, and that was before we heard about some of the guys going back to school. And honestly, there's probably 3 or 4 guys from our list total that also go back to school. And we just don't know yet, right? Like the 2026 class might be full of guys that are kind of closer to what you want the middle of this class to be joining that class. So we'll kind of see for that next year. But um, yeah, let's start with honorable mentions. Let's get those guys out of the way. I know that all of us watched at least 10 guys, so we should be able to talk about a couple guys outside of our top eight. I'll start with my number 10 guy. So if I was doing a top 10, he would be listed at 10. And it's one of the more interesting watches because I think that there is a path for this player that he could be in the league a long time if he goes to the right situation. And when I say right situation, I mean literally there's 2 teams I think he could go to and have some success if he had to play. Dylan Gabriel, quarterback for Oregon. I think if he was drafted by the Niners or the Dolphins, he'd probably be fine. That's kind of my take on him. I think if he was drafted to be the backups for either of those teams, he could come in, run those offenses, do the stuff that they're required to do in those offenses, and probably look pretty good doing so. Outside of that, he might be a decent backup for other types of teams across the league, but it'd be a stretch even for that to me. He's probably more likely a guy that is better off trying to make a career of it in like at the CFL or that type of thing. But realistically, I think he could have some success with at least those 2 teams.
I like that. I mean, he's 8 on my board. Um, for me, he's my QB 8. And like you said, I just for me it's great fundamentals. Really does
Yes,
everything well.
he does.
It's
Yeah,
just when you're not an elite athlete at his size, like the
it's
only
hard.
way you can really be successful is if you're literally Drew Brees. Like
pretty,
that's pretty
pretty
much it.
much. Pretty much. Yeah.
And he's just not quite that. Like you said, I think there's some systems where I think he could maybe make it work.
Mm-hmm.
But again, that's a maybe. And I don't know if because of his size, I don't know if he's gonna get that real chance. And I don't know. Personally, if I were him, I know he's not gonna do this. Personally, if I were him, I would ditch the NFL altogether and I would go and be the greatest CFL quarterback that's ever lived.
Right.
He
Like
would be. He could go to
that's
the
kind of the thing.
CFL,
Yeah.
and he would be the greatest quarterback of all time in Canadian football history. But instead, he's going to be a backup in the NFL for a decade.
And you know what? Pays good money. You know.
True. He
So.
probably pays better, honestly.
Oh, it
Might not have
definitely
the
does. Yeah.
perks. Might not have the
Yeah.
perks.
Right. Yeah. You might not be a local legend or a
Yeah.
Canadian legend, but I think that's a problem. And I want your thoughts too, Jake. But I think with him, like the skill set is there to be a guy that can come in and like kind of play the offense the way it's meant to be played. He could do some good things. It's just again when you don't have good arm talent, when you don't have the size, when you don't have elite athleticism, because he can move a little bit. He's definitely more of a playmaker than some guys in this class are in terms with his legs, but he's not running away from people. He's not going to be a design run threat consistently. Like he's not that type of quarterback, right? So when you don't have the physical tools, it's a really tough projection. That's why I said the Niners and Dolphins, I think, because they both thrive with two quarterbacks who probably have two of the worst physical tools in the league. Let's just be honest about it. Like Purdy definitely has enough scrambling ability and that type of stuff, but like arm talent wise, overall athleticism wise, neither of those two quarterbacks that start for those teams are even NFL average in either of those marks. But they make it work because of the scheme and they have strengths in other areas. I don't think that Gabriel's going to be the next Brock Purdy or anything like that, but I think that that's the type of game he'd have to play if he's going to have success at the NFL level. So,
Yeah. I had him at 5.
wow,
So
Jake
I'm a
is
little
bullish
bit
by our
higher,
standards.
but I think for me that is also kind of more of a testament to the fact that I'm not really excited about the class as a
That's
whole.
totally fair.
You
Yeah,
know,
in
I
a lot
think
of
in
ways.
another class he wouldn't be that high, and I only really have him that high because I agree with about everything you guys said. I like the comparison, um, or the projection to maybe the 49ers or Dolphins. I think those
Mm-hmm.
would be good fits, but I have him at 5 because I think if he does go to a team that is the right fit for him schematically, then he could be pretty good. And it almost reminds me of Bo Nix in a way. I know we had this conversation. I think it was Dalton who had this opinion last year about how if Nix went to the right system, he could be really good, but if he didn't, then he can't really elevate anything around him. And I kind of feel the same way about Gabriel a little bit. So that was part of the reason for him being higher, but there's some obvious limitations there. Um, and I think, if I was more excited about the rest of the class as a whole, I don't think he would be as high. But
Right. Yeah. So I get that because again, like he plays quarterback better than a lot of the guys who are going to be above him on my list. Like
Yes.
that's just what it is.
yeah,
But if we're projecting obviously to the NFL, this is where a lot of people who maybe don't spend a lot of time worrying about like projections and like talking about like or they don't understand the difference between playing quarterback in college and the NFL. Will go like, well, Dylan Gabriel was one of the best, if not the best quarterback in college football this year. Like, why is he not higher? It's like, well, he's probably sub 6 foot, barely 200 pounds, and doesn't really have the arm talent. It's like that. All that stuff matters when you get to the next level, right? So, but again, in a class like this, I honestly could I see him being taken, or like if I was drafting for a team, could I see the argument drafting him over some of the guys I have higher than him? Probably. If I had a plan for him, and I felt like I at least knew what I was getting as like a really solid backup. Um, no, yeah, really not a lot of arguments there. But Dalton, who would be one of your honorable mentions you want to talk
So
about?
my honorable mention is Riley Leonard. I actually have the same. I was 6th round grade on both he and Gabriel.
Mm-hmm.
But for Leonard, which is funny because Leonard, I was talking about pre-show. I think I had like a 2nd or 3rd round grade on him last year. But I just felt like there was more potential. Right now, it's just now that we've seen him really play like this full year at Notre Dame, where he's had a lot of weapons around him, been playing in games where they have outmatched a lot of the teams they're playing. And, the production's all right, but he's not like them. He's not carrying them. And there's just not much to get excited about with him other than like, the prerequisites are all there. Good athlete. He is tough, but like, I don't know. I find it very hard to see him being a high level starter in the NFL or even a start. Like I don't see him consistently being a starter really in the NFL.
That's fair.
yeah, yeah. I felt this. He was going to be my honorable mention too. So I feel pretty much the same way. I was pretty disappointed by his 2024 season, to be honest, because I was actually pretty excited to see him in Notre Dame this year. But yeah, their loss against Northern Illinois, I think,
Yeah.
earlier this year, that game pretty much sums up how I felt about Leonard kind of throughout this whole year. Just in terms of just not being able to carry his team really at all especially against a team like that.
Yeah.
But yeah,
It's fair
I feel
enough.
it's the same.
By the way, I just want to mention Dylan Gabriel did have a day 3 grade for me. I have these guys from as high as like early, like we'll talk about first round stuff like that, all the way down to day 3. I just have them separated out and not round grades right now, but just ranges for these guys, especially because quarterbacks are tough. Like especially guys who aren't projected to be like starter quality guys. They can get drafted all over the board. It feels like so. It's like, but this one's gonna probably surprise you guys. Riley Leonard is my number 4 quarterback currently.
Oh, shit.
Right now. And the main reason is not because I think has starter potential, like you said, Dalton. I don't think he necessarily does. But he has physical tools that I think you can work with, and I like his pocket presence, especially watching the games they did with him. I think he's a capable backup quarterback in the right scheme that has rushing upside, which I think is really big for a player that could need to come in and win you games. Like if they have that playmaking ability, or at least the ability to be used as a runner, and has decent pocket presence, those are 2 things I look for in guys that are going to have to be backups, right? Because if you don't have something else as a standout trait, you're probably not going to be a starter, but you can at least probably win a game or 2 as a backup quarterback. And I think there's a lot of similarities to him, actually. Like some people will view this as like a negative, but considering I have an early day 3 grade on him, it just won't really be that big of a deal. Daniel Jones with better pocket presence and less tools as a thrower is kind of how I view him, weirdly enough. I know like there's the Duke connection, but like both guys that don't really have all the spectacular tools you want, but they're both good athletes. They both could throw a decent football. Leonard's problem is I don't think he can push the ball down the field. Like that's what ultimately I think keeps him from being a starter in the league, because I don't think he has the talent as a thrower or really the accuracy as a thrower down the field. In the intermediate to short game, he can make some good throws, and I saw some good throws on tape. But in general, like again, being QB4 does not mean he's necessarily good that much in this class. But for me, I like the tools enough to kind of put him over some of the guys that I'm not as confident is going to be able to make it work at the next level. So, but it's an interesting one. Yeah. My other honorable mention, because I want to get this guy out of the way, and this is really disappointing because like if you look at the advanced metrics, like if you're a guy who looks at a lot of PFF stats, or if you're a guy that looks at a lot of like those types of things, he ranks very highly in a lot of those things. But when you watch him, I'm just like, I don't see an NFL quarterback really that much. I have Jackson Dart at number 9 out of Ole Miss. Like he has some tools as a thrower. He'll make a couple throws a game where I'm like, okay, I see what you're going with here. But his deep ball is disgusting. Like especially when he's throwing the ball down the field 20 plus yards, it's not pretty to watch. Let me put it that way. The offense is very immediate, like just kind of like rudimentary. It's very built to like the same problem like a guy like Matt Corral had with the system, where it's like he looks good, the numbers look good, and then you watch him and you're like, he doesn't really have pocket presence. He doesn't really know how to read the field very quickly. A lot of the stuff is kind of premeditated stuff. Like it doesn't really scream NFL stuff to me. And then you factor in that he's not necessarily playing the best within that system either. At times, like it's tough. It just kind of is. You look at games like against Florida where he completely melted down. Like it's tough to look at him and go like that's the guy that I think could either be a starter, which I don't think is the case, or be a guy that you can reliably put in there as a backup even and like win games with, right? Because that's the other problem with a guy like this is where if you don't think he has the elite tools to one day become a starter, you also have to worry if he's going to be the kind of guy that can come in and run your offense well as a backup. Like he's kind of in this weird purgatory for me. So that's why I have him at 9.
Yeah. I'm a little higher on him. He's my 6th quarterback. I had like a 4th round grade on him.
Yeah, I had, by the way, like just a day 3 like grade with him. So
yeah, like he to me, I do like that he can move. You know,
yes,
I do
he's
like
a good
toughness as a runner.
Yeah,
and even when like that Florida game, you know, even though he melted down, still threw for over 300 yards that game.
Yeah.
I love the release. on him.
Release is
It's
good.
snappy, and it's really quick. And the big thing for me was at least he protects the ball pretty well. Doesn't intentionally put the ball in harm's way a lot.
Yeah,
Now,
right.
with his accuracy issues down the field, it sometimes ends up
That's
there.
yeah.
But
So, but
the
yeah,
decision making itself,
isn't
I
terrible.
think, is something you can work with.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
it's
it would
definitely
need to
something
be
that's coachable.
yeah, it would need to be like an Eagles offense, I think, for him to be successful. Something like
Right.
that.
Right.
A lot of RPO. Yeah, a lot of
A
quarterback
more
run,
rudimentary offense
for
like
sure.
he's running right now, for sure.
But the NFL's kind of
It's going that
heading
direction
that way a little bit.
in a lot of ways. Yeah, unfortunately, in some ways it's unfortunate. But what do you think with him, Jake?
So I also had him at 6.
Okay.
I feel pretty much the same way about him. The only reason that I had him below Gabriel was just because of his ability to kind of melt down. And I know he did still play well in that Florida game, but I I remember in a 10-minute span I saw him throw 3 interceptions that I think like one or two of them was disallowed, and then that whole aspect of just not being able to mentally, calm down and read through a defense in those high pressure moments worries me, especially into the NFL. But I am a bit higher on him than some of the other QBs. So I do have him at 6. I think he's a great athlete. Obviously, he can his release on the run, his arm strength on the run, and his athleticism. I think does give him a solid kind of foundation to build off of, and the fact that he can at least make plays with his athleticism. Even though he's got a bit to work through mentally, I think that is something that's still coachable. So
Yeah.
if he ends up in the right place, I think there's a lot of things he could do well. But yeah, I am worried about his um, just ability to kind of calm himself down in those
Yeah,
high
he
pressure
he
situations.
generally speaking, the biggest thing for me, I think ultimately is just the accuracy is just not consistent.
Yeah,
And not just not consistent, but like even when he's completing some of these passes, it's like, was that the receiver doing a lot of the work on that? Was that, I don't know. It was tough to watch it sometimes whenever I was watching some of his games. So, um, we'll see. Kind of like I wonder what teams think are going to think about him
yeah,
because the tools are better than some of the guys who I have above him. But I don't know how much it matters if they're not sure if he can run an offense for them. Ultimately, like I think a lot of that for him is going to be in meetings. Like, can he show them that he understands how to play other types of offense besides Ole Miss's offense? We'll have to see with that. But that should be our honorable mentions and also some of our guys. So again, Jake, your number 5 and 6 quarterbacks are
yeah.
officially off the board, and
In the
Dalton,
honorable
your
mentions part, that's
right,
not.
yeah, exactly. Well, hey, it's one of those classes. And then Dalton, you had Gabriel at 8, right?
Yep, and Dart
And
at
then
6.
Dart at 6. Okay, cool. And then I had Riley Leonard at 4, which tells you a lot about what I think
This
about the class.
that whole first segment just kind of sums up the class as
And
well.
that's why I wanted to talk about some of the honorable
Yeah.
mentions because I felt like otherwise you'd be like, wait, you don't have X name on or you have that guy on your list now. But so we'll get into our actual top 8 here officially. So Jake and I both have to talk about our top 8 guy or our number 8 guy because Dalton, we know that's still in Gabriel for you. For me, number 8 is Curtis Rourke of Ohio and Indiana. He's a guy that has really proved a lot in the Big Ten this year for Indiana. Really helped them a ton. He's a bigger quarterback, listed 6'5". I would guess he's probably a little bit shorter than that because they always kind of boost these guys up a little bit. Bigger quarterback, but not a big armed quarterback to me. That's kind of ultimately the issue with him is I don't think he has any elite physical tools in any shape or form, but he does throw with a lot of accuracy and touch. I think he can run an offense for you. He's proven at Indiana that he can run that offense with precision. The Ohio State game is the one that ultimately kills me because he had an opportunity to show he could do it against big competition, and his offensive line failed him admittedly, but he did not really do much to help himself. And I think that that's ultimately the issue is he just doesn't have the tools to overcome adversity like that. And you're going to need to have those at the NFL level to consistently succeed. So he's a guy I'd love to take as a backup. Like I view him as a guy that's going to be able to come in and be a true like valuable backup to an offense, especially one that has kind of like a timing offense or one that has receivers that can do a lot of the work for him. I know that Jake Browning has been that type of guy for the Bengals for the last couple of years, so maybe something like that you hope for with him. But still a day 3 grade and a guy that doesn't really have starter upside to me.
Yeah, he's a guy I haven't really, I'll be honest, haven't gotten into a ton of yet, but I think he's gonna, just from what I have seen, like you said, I just think there's the upside's very low.
Yes.
So I think he'll be somewhere in that day 3 mix for me.
Me too. Yeah.
My cat is eating like next to me in the room, so if you hear a weird sound, just wanted
cat's got to eat.
And also, the Raiders just got a punt blocked. So
they had a punt blocked, or they blocked a punt.
No, they got blocked.
Okay. All right. Cool.
Yeah.
All right.
As someone with Atlanta's defense in fantasy this week, very happy. Got a forced fumble and a fumble recovery and a blocked punt.
There you go. Boom.
Already. Hasn't been a good start for the Raiders.
Yeah. For those who don't know, Jake and Dalton are Raiders fans, so they are also very carefully watching the Raiders hopefully lose because that's the best thing for them against the Falcons. So we'll see. Good start, I guess.
Yeah.
We'll go from there. But where'd you have work, Jake? Did you have him in your top 8?
I had Rourke at 7.
Okay.
So I felt pretty similarly to you. I think, he processes things well enough and he anticipates things well enough that he can be a solid option in a like a timing based offense if he gets the right fit. But ultimately, there's just too many limitations, for me here to have him any higher. But I do think there are, in that kind of system, I think he can play well. So he did make it into my top 8.
Yeah, again, I just think he's one of those guys that screams like valuable backup. The team, like, fans are gonna love him if he has to come in for, like, he's a guy, if your quarterback sucks, like if you hate your starting quarterback or your quarterback never stays healthy, draft Curtis Rourke because he'll probably play pretty well for you as a backup once he learns the system, and your fans will probably love him because he's from Indiana and it's cool and it's funny. Yeah. Like, that's kind of what it comes down to. That's kind of the best way to describe it, I think, for me. But who'd you have at 8 then, Jake?
So my 8 was Cade Klubnik.
Okay, so yeah, we talked about this pre-show. The reports that I've been seeing is that Cade is likely to return to school, either to Clemson or maybe even take a bag from a Big Ten team, I'm hearing, to come play for them. So that's interesting. We'll see how that plays out, but you can still go ahead and talk about Cade there, Jake.
Yeah, I think, he almost in the same way as Dart. I think, he's a good enough athlete and he has a good enough release that he has a foundation there to kind of grow off of in the NFL. And I did think he got better at reading the field and going through the decision process during this past season. But yeah, I don't know. I don't see a ton of upside there in terms of like developing into an actual starter.
Gotcha. Yeah, I didn't watch him for this cycle, so I haven't seen much of him this year. But I know that he definitely had a big year compared to what he had put up at Clemson prior to this. So he's starting to show some of that 5-star potential.
Yeah, he did get better. Most notably with him, I think he got better at just reading the full field. Because he has the athleticism to be a good dual threat option. But that was one area I saw him come along in. So he did have, I think, definitely an improvement in 2024. But yeah, just in terms of his total game, there's just not a ton that really invigorates me.
There you go.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't have that much more to really say about him.
Yeah. Gotcha. No, I get it. Like, I think there's a lot of reasons to want to like Klubnik. And the problem for me is just given, like, the fact that he's at Clemson, a team that should theoretically out-talent everyone in their conference, and someone with his talent, you would expect a ton of production, and it just really hasn't been there. Like, at least not, like, he's not dominating in that conference the way I would expect him to, and that's kind of the issue for me. But I don't know if that's says more about him or more about Clemson. It's really hard to say.
Yeah, like the fact that he had such a big leap this year statistically does make me think that maybe he started to figure things out. And we'll kind of see whether that continues next year with Clemson or if he comes out or if he moves on to another team. He's definitely a guy that's going to be curious for either this year or if he comes out next year. But talent, at least, is starting to show a little bit, I think, with him. So we'll see. We'll see where that goes. Let's move on to number 7 then, because I know Dalton Dillon's Gabriel was your number 8, correct?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So number 7 for me is Quinn Ewers of Ohio State / Texas. He is so the best way I can describe him for those who play college football 25. He plays like I play quarterback in college football 25, which means I throw screens a lot. I put the ball in harm's way down the field too often, and I scramble around for no goddamn reason. That's kind of how I feel about Quinn in a lot of ways. Now, the thing with him, and Dalton knows this because I rip on him all the time when we do our betting show. Anytime Texas is mentioned, I'm like, man, that guy stinks. He has some traits, like he does have some tools as a thrower, and he's not a bad athlete, but he's just not a great athlete either. But he just, again, the full package just isn't there. He's this quarterback that's very streaky. He's been streaky throughout his college career. And it feels like this year in particular, he's really started to kind of just almost get worse over the course of the season to the point where, like, I worry about whether he can be an NFL quarterback at all. But some of the past production he's had, some of the big games he's had against teams like Alabama, it does make me think that there's something to him. But the tape just feels like it gets worse the more I watch it, and it's just so boring. Like watching him play quarterback is just boring, man. I know that's not like a true scouting thing. Like you can't really just judge it off of that, but to some degree, I think you can with him, where it's just like he's not enough of a playmaker oftentimes to make up for the fact that he just doesn't have good pocket presence. He doesn't handle the rush well. Like there's just a lot of things he has to work on, but the tools will probably get him drafted if he does come out somewhere on early day 3. So.
Yeah, see, for me, the boring is kind of what I like about him. He's my
Which,
QB
again, I
four.
get it. I do. Yeah, I get that.
But, yeah, like, I like that he manages the game well and just generally, I think, puts his receivers in a good position to make plays after the catch. He places the ball on that front foot, lets them, times it well enough that they can actually go make plays because they have such great athletes. I think generally places the ball in a spot where guys can make plays. It's just sometimes I think he tries to do too much and puts the ball, like you said, in harm's way a lot.
Yeah.
But I think the big thing with him is the injury concerns. I think that's why
another
the
problem
tape does not
too.
look
The skinny
great.
frame.
Yeah, and I think that's why the tape doesn't look great down the stretch of the season because I think he just gets beat up, and I think that really affects him when he does try to make those tough throws. It increases the margin for error there, or it narrows the margin for error, and I think that's kind of the issue for him. I have a late 3rd grade on him. I think he, could be a spot starter here and could be a long-term backup guy, like a guy that can take over mid-season for 6 to 8 weeks rather than just like 1 or 2 weeks. I think he could do that, different styles, but kind of like another Texas quarterback, Colt McCoy, did for years, was just a guy that you could plug in and he can at least run your offense. And
I think that's fair. Where'd you have him at, Jake?
My house is being rattled by a helicopter right now.
No, you're good.
So I'm sorry. There's so many sounds going on. I apologize.
Jake is currently in the middle of a war
third time I've
zone,
had to-
so we have to worry about that for him. No, anyway.
I had Ewers 4.
Okay, so you guys had him both at 4.
Which
okay.
honestly really kind of cringes.
It makes right?
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
But really with him, I think he does enough things well to be that high on the list. And I think boring, as you said, is a solid description for his game. But I do agree with Dalton. I think that that can be a good thing. I think there's just enough things that he does decently well. I think he can throw the ball accurately to all 3 areas. I saw when watching him, I saw times he was able to move safeties with his eyes or keep them still. He's got decent pocket awareness. There's just enough things that he does well that I think can translate better to the NFL than some of the guys below him. But with that said, I also don't really have the highest ceiling for him either. I think he's a decent backup, a backup that you, if your starting QB goes down and you're a playoff team, he's a backup that I think you can think of and be like, okay, my season's not completely over, if that makes sense.
Fair enough.
Like Mariota, maybe.
Yeah, that's fair
Yeah,
enough.
like a backup where if your starting QB sucks, people will start to be like, oh, we should go to this guy, and then he comes in and you're
Yeah.
like, oh, he's not really that much better.
Yeah, it's whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Here's
fair
a
enough.
question I have for
Yeah.
you guys about him, about yours. Do you guys think that he should take another year in college?
Me and Shane just had the same exact.
Here's my problem is I don't think he can gain anything from it. I think that we know who he is as a quarterback, and I don't expect the things I have problems with him have been consistent problems throughout his career. So I don't at this point I don't have a reason to believe that that's going to suddenly change. Like if he goes to like Oregon, for example, it's going to look better because it's Oregon, and that's what they do with quarterbacks. They make them look better because of the scheme and how they operate. He's going to look better. But is it going to erase the problems I have with him? No, it's not. I don't think so. For me, at least, I don't think he gains anything from doing it. I think he should just take the leap and hope that maybe with an NFL team where he gets drafted, like I don't know exactly where he would get picked in the actual draft. It kind of depends on where teams value him in terms of they think he could be a starter one day. Do they think he's the long-term backup? But he can at least develop maybe more in the NFL at this point than he probably can at college. So that's kind of my thought, but I do think there's a solid chance that he plays football in college next year.
Yeah, I actually like the Oregon idea.
It makes sense for him. It does.
Yeah, and also I do think I think Oregon has helped guys like Gabriel and Nix with their decision making.
Yeah,
and I think that is something that I think Ewers could really mature and could end up. I think if he spent a year at like Oregon, I think we could be looking at him closer to how we viewed Bo Nix last year. If he were to stay another year, possibly. So I don't mind it. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. For me, from an evaluation perspective, I don't think it will change much for me, but it could change things in the eyes of the NFL because Oregon guys they improve when they go there. Yeah. They do. So
yeah.
But what do you think, Jake?
I feel the same way. Yeah, I don't.
Fair
all
enough.
my opinions have already been
said.
I do agree that I think there's just not really much more I feel like I need to see.
Right. That's kind of the thing. Now, for him, though, I do think, like, again, because the NFL, they can view things differently. You put up a really nice year for Oregon, maybe, then again, if he does happen to have a great college football playoff, which I don't think he will personally, but if he does, that also might be enough for him to be like, I guess I'm just going to make the jump then because, what else am I going to do? But we'll see with him. Dalton, I don't think you've said your seventh guy yet, right?
I have not yet. And I'm curious this guy, where he's on everyone else's boards, if he's on your boards. Gotcha. I have Kyle McCord from Syracuse.
I do have him on my board, yes.
Yeah, I have a 5th-round grade on him. I really like that. I mean, he's a true gunslinger, and I find that fun. He is probably the opposite of Quinn Ewers in that he is very exciting to watch. But man, it's just the problem is he is always going to give you a chance to win, but he's also going to be the reason you lose games. And it's hard to see that being sustainable as a starter in the NFL. I think, it's something that, you're gonna have to grow out of in order to be a starter and quarterback in the NFL. Like, it's something that I think someone like Baker Mayfield, for example, has kind of been able to escape enough at times to be able to be a starter.
The function.
Whereas function. Whereas Jameis Winston, as we've seen these last few weeks, just cannot get out of his own way. No. Just can't.
Yeah. And some guys are just hardwired to sling that ball, man. They don't give a shit.
The Lord will not deliver him from.
Yeah, they will not deliver him from the interceptions.
But we've also noticed since Jameis Winston has taken over,
they're better.
Browns at least have hope in games.
Yes, they're better. Yeah.
Deshaun Watson did nothing, whereas at least Winston did
Yeah,
something.
stuff
and
is
tried to
happening
win
every
the game.
drive for the Browns.
Exactly.
There's never
And-
something not happening.
And that's the thing that I think will entice teams about McCord is that he at least gives you a chance. You can maybe hope that you can coach those interceptions out of him. The size and for his size, the athleticism is good. I think for me, the reason why I can't project him as like a starter in this league is that I don't think at this point, from what we've seen, and there hasn't really been any growth with it, I don't think that bad habit of putting the ball in harm's way is going to get coached out of him. I just don't.
Yeah,
I think that's his nature.
That's totally fair. I do have him on my list. He's number 6 for me, Dalton, with a early to mid day 3 grade. The thing with him is very similar to what you said. I do like the gunslinger mentality, but for me, a lot of what I liked is the short to intermediate game. He has a lot of velocity on those throws. He's very accurate on like the timing stuff over the middle of the field. When he does throw the ball down the field, it feels like he's always giving his receiver a chance almost all the time. Like the decision making is certainly something that's going to have to improve. I will say his turnover worthy play percentage, despite throwing away way more passes, did go down a little bit, according to PFF, and his big time throw rate went up a little bit. So he is improving that ratio more and more, it seems like. And so you hope that can continue to the NFL. But again, he's a guy that I think like he's very Ryan Fitzpatrick-esque in the way that if he's a backup for you and he comes, he's probably gonna have some big games. But there's also be some games where you're like, get this dude off the field. Like, what is he doing? Look at a Pittsburgh game this year, right? Like, that one where he throws like 5 interceptions or whatever it was. And it's like it's a rough day at the office, but he kept throwing it. You got to give him credit. He didn't stop playing.
And it says a lot that Syracuse went back to him. Like they kept relying on him.
Hey, like we're gonna live with the lumps, and hey, they beat Miami and kept them out of the ACC title game. So what are you gonna say about it? But no, I do like him a lot. I think he's one of those guys where if I was a team that was drafting a quarterback on day 3, he's probably the first guy that I'm mentioning simply because I'm like I like the way this dude tries to play football, and I want to see if I can get him to a point where like. All right, maybe you have a couple balls not go your way, but you mostly are throwing the ball where you need to be throwing it. Like that's kind of where it is with him, I think, especially. So, but where'd you have him at, Jake?
Yeah, I had him at 9, so he was just outside my top 8. But even though he was lower, I will say I had more fun watching him.
Exactly, right? There's more stuff happening every game.
Many other quarterbacks. I do think he's one of those guys that will never not put the ball in harm's way.
Probably, realistically, if we're being honest about it. It probably won't be ever
some
great.
players that do that, and I think he's one of them. But I like a lot of things about his game. I agree with your point about the short and intermediate passing. That was something I noticed. I did watch him a little bit less than some of the other guys on my list, but that was one of the big things that I did pick up on. And just entertaining football. I enjoyed watching him at Syracuse this year. The game where they beat Miami, that was fun. Oh, yeah. I know he's a little lower for me, but I do see the positives. I think for me, just the not being consistent enough and just putting the ball in harm's way too often, and I just think that that's something that he's not really gonna be able to ditch. So that did push him a little bit lower, but
totally
fun
fair.
to watch.
Yeah, totally.
That's to the rest of this class for me. He was
a lot of the bottom of this class is not super fun to watch. And then I think Jake, did we already get your number 7 guy?
We're all the way through 4 for me.
Gotcha. Okay, I thought so. So we already got.
We're mowing through mine.
Yeah. Hey, fair enough. So that was, and we also got through all of our number 6 guys, by the way. So we're good there. So number 5, for me. And I'll be honest with you, a lot of this is because I'm hoping that some of 2023 is still in there because I see flashes of it. I saw some flashes of it, but Carson Beck is number 5 for me. There's still some throws where I'm like, all right, I see why you were kind of QB1 going into this season, right? Like for a lot of people. I understand like some of the throws over the middle of the field, some of the zip he can get on his passes. Like I see some of that stuff. Anticipation occasionally, awesome. But man, he just puts the ball in harm's way a lot, especially that Alabama game. It was one of the funniest games to watch for me of all these guys because I'm like, one play it'd be like a disastrous just diabolically bad throw down the field to nobody. It felt like that never had a prayer, right? And then the next play is like a dig over the middle of the field. He completes like in tight window coverage and throws it right where it needs to be. And I'm like, dude, can you pick a direction to go in this game? Again, brings him all the way back and then throws a back-breaking pick on a route that felt like it never had a chance as a deep throw down like into the corner. And I'm like, man, like what a just that is if you ever want to like if you want to know exactly how I feel about Carson Beck, just watch the Alabama game a couple times, just be like, that's exactly how I feel. Like there's some great moments in there, and then there's like, what is this dude doing right now? Like what is he thinking? And he also just I think the problem with him is he tries too much sometimes to be a bit of a playmaker, and he just doesn't have the gifts to do that. Like he doesn't throw on the run super well. He's not a great athlete. He's good enough to pick up maybe a first down here or there, but he just doesn't have the speed and the explosion to get out of the pocket the way he tries to so often. And even in the Alabama game, like he gets hawked down and gives up the football on a fumble at one point too. Like it's just there's a lot of inconsistency, but I see some of the stuff that people probably saw whenever they were watching him for last year's class when he didn't come out. So
yeah, it's funny. Like you mentioned, like the way he like just can't really work out of structure like that.
Yeah.
Because like he does escape the initial pressure pretty well, and he does a great job of keeping his eyes downfield to try to make a play happen. He just can't actually make
he just
play.
Can't. Yeah, he just isn't able to do it.
It's weird.
Like
in rhythm though, he is very, very good, very accurate. But when things like if his first couple reads aren't there, the happy feet start kicking in, and then the accuracy goes out the window. He tries to force stuff, but like if he could get better at just okay, it's not there. I'm gonna go try to just run straight ahead and slide and get 5 yards, or I'm gonna get out and throw the ball away. If he could get better at doing that, he could be like I think he could be a competent starter in this league. I also have him at 5 for me. I have a late 3rd round grade on him for a lot of the same reasons.
Yeah, I had like an early day 3, late day 2 type of grade too, where like I feel like he's a guy you draft in that round because of what he's shown at times, especially in 2023, and you hope you can coach some of the stuff out of him that's causing him problems. And if he goes to the right team that has a structure in place that allows him to play within the pocket more and allows him to just kind of step and throw and get stuff out quickly, he'll be fine. I just don't see any upside really with him either because of the lack of tools that allow him to play out of structure. That kind of gives him that issue. So player that honestly, like, I have no idea what's going to happen with him. I've been hearing that he also might not come out. Like,
does he have more eligibility?
I believe he has 1 year left. I think.
How many years?
God. I think he has 1 year. I'm not 100% sure, but I've heard reports that he might not come out, which means that he has to have eligibility unless he's going to just like quit playing football. Which maybe.
If anything,
I think his first year was the COVID year. I want to say
so. It might have been. So he might have another year. Yeah, he might.
Yeah. Would you see what's his face from Oklahoma State is
Alan
getting
Bowman?
his 8th year? Yeah.
I thought he came out. I thought he was entering the draft. Bowman. I thought.
No, he. Well, I don't think he's accepting it, but he did get awarded an 8th year of eligibility.
Okay, which hey, good for him, man. I'm glad he didn't take it because put the fries in the bag, dude. Get out of here.
He should have taken it. If I was given an 8th year of eligibility, I would take it just.
Oh yeah, especially like with how much NIL money those guys are getting.
Dude, how much money is he going to get paid?
I'm 27 playing college football.
Oh, to play for any Big 12 team as a starting quarterback,
I guess it's probably more.
He'd still probably get, I would imagine, at least $300,000 to $500,000 minimum.
Right, that's fair. Yeah. He does, but yeah, he did declare for the draft.
He's hung him up finally.
So good for him, I guess. Didn't watch him.
He'll be in the XFL or whatever they're calling it nowadays.
Yeah, go for it, buddy. I don't even think I could say learn Canadian, considering one, that's just a joke that's funny anyway, because, what's Canadian supposed to be? But also, just get out of here, dude. And then I think Dylan Gabriel is your 5, Jake, right? So we're done with number 5 as well.
Yeah.
So we're up to number 4, which I had for Riley Leonard. What? Good.
Where did you have Beck, Jake?
I didn't have him in my top 8. I had him 10.
Oh. Gotcha.
Wow.
Yeah,
good for you. Honestly, good for you. Get
Yeah,
that dude out of here. No, I was kidding.
I'm a bit lower on him than most people that I've seen.
If you just watched this year, it's like, what are you supposed to be excited about? So I get it.
One thing I noticed with him is when he gets out of the pocket, that he goes straight. Like, he won't run for 5 yards or something. He goes straight into.
He does.
Like,
he runs to the
playmaker
sideline,
mode,
or he'll run to the sideline. Yeah.
Yeah, and he's like, I have to make a play. But when he's in the pocket, I feel like he doesn't trust his arm as much when he's just standing in the pocket, which I thought was weird because
He's much
once
better.
he gets out of the pocket, he's like, I have to make something happen right now. But in the pocket, I feel like he doesn't. He's just a little more timid. I just thought that was. I don't know. He's an interesting watch.
Yeah.
I could see the positives though. Just for me, I don't know. I really was not moved by his season.
I think the biggest indictment of him though was that SEC title game. The way he got hurt and a backup that I had never heard of came in, and there was zero drop off. Like everything looked the same, which was a little concerning.
Yeah.
The backup that got sacrificed.
The backup that got absolutely depleted in a way that never happens anymore to quarterbacks because they rarely let that happen to themselves.
Except for the
Arizona, except for the Iowa State kid who just got killed because he was standing there for some reason. I don't know.
Has to be something.
Still something going on with that. Yeah, I don't know what that was. But no, yeah, if you have Beck at 10, I'm like, yeah, I mean, there's better players probably higher, but or worse players probably higher, but I get it because it's like, what am I supposed to be excited about with this, right?
Yeah.
Like, isn't it funny how like every position in the draft, like when you're talking about like a 4th round pick, you're like, this dude might be really good. Like you could talk yourself, but with quarterbacks, it's like, man, this guy might not be able to play. This guy might be ass.
Yeah. I mean, there's really after 2. There is nobody after 2, and even at 2, I'm not 100% convinced that. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if they were out of the league in 5 years.
Right. That's 100%.
Like, legitimately.
Yeah. I do think that if I had to bet, the numbers, the quarterbacks drafted like 2nd and 3rd in this draft will probably have shorter. I would not be surprised if they had shorter careers than the guys drafted like 7th and 8th. Because the guys getting drafted 7th and 8th are probably going to stick around as backups forever. And the guys that are drafted 2 or 3 might flame out because of the way that they are. So it's very interesting, right? But number 4, I know I had Riley Leonard. I think Dalton, you had Ewers before, and Jake, who did you have before?
I had also had Ewers.
Right. Okay, so we're good with 4 then too. Top 3 time.
Top 3 time. Probably. I imagine we all have the same top 3.
We have to.
I assume, and one of these guys also may not come out depending on what happens. Yeah. Specifically at number 3, I think we all have Jalen Milroe at 3.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's talk about that a little bit. So with Jalen, I talked about this a little bit with Dalton when we did our first show last week about just kind of previewing the top of the draft and consensus rankings and all this stuff. With Milroe, my issue right now is I think the only path for him to be an NFL player early is to basically run the Jalen Hurts offense from like 4 years ago. Like that version of the Eagles offense is probably the only one that he can run right away and have some amount of success in. And then you have to hope you can develop him as a passer more from there because it started off pretty good this season with him as a passer. He was showing some more stuff in that regard. But just the consistency with his accuracy, the decision-making, it still isn't where it needs to be for me to put him high on a draft board despite all of the physical gifts. Because this is a guy that, if you're talking about physical tools, there's nobody in this class other than the guy we're talking about, number 2, that I think is particularly close to him in terms of physical tools. And it just right now I don't think it matters enough for him to be drafted highly, even in a class that's probably lacking of anyone that's close to his talent level outside of the top 2 guys. So it's just he's a tough evaluation right now, and I think it really just comes down to what teams are interested in that type of quarterback at this point.
Yeah, the natural ability is there. Like the arm talent isn't bad.
Nope.
Places the ball pretty well again, and great runner. But like I really just the issue for me is The accuracy's a little inconsistent still.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And I really just I don't know if you could run an NFL offense with him past a set. Like his third read and maybe even his second read on a lot of plays would have to be run.
Yeah,
Like
and that's the Jalen Hurts offense from the first like year or
Yeah.
so of his career. Like it's that offense. You have a predetermined read. If it's not there, you use your 4.3 speed and your relatively large frame and you run.
Yeah.
That's what you do. Like that's the only thing I think you can do with him immediately, especially.
Yeah. And I worry how sustainable that'll be for him versus Hurts, who like
Mhm.
now Milrow is still a solid athlete, good build, but like Hurts is literally like Hurts I think could have been a very good NFL running back if he wanted
Yeah,
to be.
he's built much more solid than most quarterbacks ever dream of being built. So
Yeah.
totally fair. What do you think, Jake?
Yeah, I think, you know, even compared to the two above him, I think he could have more potential for me.
Yeah,
Um,
for
Yeah,
sure.
fair.
but there. Yeah, there's obvious drawbacks that just pull him behind those two. He really, I really don't think he anticipates well. He mostly on the tape. Whenever I would see him throw an open receiver, it's always after he sees the receiver break open, and I think that's partly why he can't really get um, into too many reads in one play because he's waiting too long for the first read. If that's not there, he's waiting too long for the second read, and then at that point he just bails and runs. So I think his pocket presence could even improve a little bit too. But with that said, he's physically gifted, um, and I think that foundation and his just raw skill set, if he can improve in those things, I think he has a really high ceiling, maybe even higher than one of Sanders or Ward. But those are just a couple obvious things that I think just hold him below those two for now.
Yeah, I think that if we're just going off of ranking these guys on like potential, he probably is either one or maybe two for me. But again, like I think specifically he just hasn't developed enough as a passer for me to be confident that he's going to come out and be able to run most offenses in the first year. And granted, that's not always why you draft these guys, especially guys like him. You'd want to draft and develop, but how high do you take a guy like that? Like I think, honestly, in a lot of ways, I think where you'd want to draft him, and like ideally, like if you're trying to just take a dart throw but not risk too much on him, you draft him in the same range that like a Malik Willis gets drafted, right? When he was drafted by the Titans, like somewhere in that range where it's like he's a third round pick or a late second round pick that you hope you can develop in a couple of years to be your starter. And if you don't, then it's not that big of a deal. Like that's probably why I think that he should probably go back, because I do think there is potential for him to get better. Maybe that includes leaving Alabama. I don't know. But regardless of what he does, I think another year in school is probably the best option for him. But he hasn't returned yet, so we won't know about that. So.
Yeah, I think that's kind of where I'm at as far as grade goes. Second round, like I think he's going to be fringe of the top 50 in this year's board.
Yeah, I have a day 2 grade on him right now, just in general. So somewhere in the second or third, you can draft him anywhere in that range. And I'm like, yeah, I get it. That's where you want to draft a guy like this. Now him on Oregon would be interesting. He'd be interesting.
It would either be really good or
bad. Yeah, it's either really unbelievably good, like Heisman and then national title good, or like it probably should have brought someone else in.
Or they're going 3 and out because he just can't consistently hit those screens
right,
the same rhythm and timing as some of these other guys.
Right, exactly. So we'll see what happens with him, but and then number 2, I think we all probably also have the same guy here, Cam Ward of Miami through Washington State through Incarnate Word originally, which is, believe it or not, the first time I watched him and was looking at him as a player was when he was in Incarnate Word, because I'm like, who the hell is this guy? I don't even know what the name of the school is. I can pronounce it right the first time I saw it. I'm like, what's this guy's doing here? So good for him on that, obviously. But what a season.
God, the Raiders just got a safety.
What?
The Raiders give him safety.
They got the ball on a punt at the 3-yard line and ran the ball for a loss of 2, and then they ran the exact same play and lost 2 yards again.
It's so bad.
What in the world?
We got a 9-3 ball game. Desmond
Okay,
Ritter
well,
revenge game is not going too well.
No.
I mean, yeah.
They lost 2 yards, ran the exact same thing, and then the exact same result happened.
Well,
Yeah.
hey, if they had another chance, third time is the charm. But they didn't get the third chance. Um, yeah, sorry to everyone watching that game. Is the other game any better? Is 13-0? Not really. Doesn't look like it. Um, some bad football tonight on Monday night. So
Pretty
watch us
brutal
instead.
doubleheader.
Yeah, watch us instead. Anyway,
Exactly.
getting back to Cam. Yeah, getting back to Cam Ward. Um, Unbelievable season for Miami. So much fun to watch play. Some stuff that I don't know about when it comes to the NFL. That's kind of my summation of him right now. Um, I think I can say it best with my notes I took of him specifically. Let me pull it up for myself. Plus arm talent, can throw with touch and velocity, an above average athlete who's a scrambling threat. Funky delivery sometimes, but doesn't seem to really impede his accuracy too bad. It kind of feels more like other problems that kind of lead to that with him sometimes. Struggles playing on time is kind of like you could just throw that up on his wiki page. It's like just he meanders around is the best way I can describe it in the pocket. He feels like he's just meandering around back there, like waiting for stuff to happen. And it's like
Yeah.
sometimes it's awesome, and other times I'm like, do something. What are you doing? Just kind of not too nonchalant in a lot of ways. Like it's
He
cool.
looks as calm as one can possibly be.
Exactly, and it's like
Talking
that's
like
cool. And then when a bad play happens, I'm like, maybe you shouldn't have been so cool about it. I don't know.
When it works,
Um,
I sit there and I think, wow, this is like the most confident QB
yes,
I've seen. And then sometimes it won't work and it'll just look bad because he's just standing there.
yeah.
I mean,
Just standing there menacingly, like the SpongeBob meme. Just that
Yeah.
every time. It's like, but he's the Ashton Genty of quarterbacks, where he's just standing there, like, what are you doing?
that's partially
Anyway,
because he is a full-grown man who's been playing college football forever,
this is true.
playing
Yeah.
against 19-year-olds.
Does not care at all about them. Yeah, he's like, get out of my face. But yeah, the other thing, like improvising, awesome, great as an improviser, makes insane stuff happen as an improviser. But I feel like sometimes he's just doing it because he can and not because he should. And I'm like, maybe chill for a minute. Like this is when you should be chilling, is when you're being a little too crazy with the football. He's been better a little bit when it comes to like putting the ball in harm's way, but that's still an element of his game. And you get it because again, when he throws the football, you're like, wow, that dude has like NFL arm talent, more so than anyone else we've talked about today, really. And it's there's a lot of good things to watch with him and a lot of good things to see. But I just worry about like how he's gonna acclimate to the NFL early on. And this is already an older prospect, a guy who's played a lot of college football. Some of this stuff I worry is just maybe who he is as a player. But you hope that if he can clean up some of that stuff, he'll be a long-term starter for somebody. But what do you think, Dalton?
Yeah, I mean, to me, my worry, like, I have a first-round grade on him just because the ability is there. Like, but, like, I don't know if I'm picking in the top 5 or top 10. I feel great about it. Like, I think that's where he's going to go, but I'd like him more in the teens. But, yeah, my worry is that, to me, fundamentally, he's the same player he was when I was watching tape of him at Incarnate Word, pretty much. Incarnate Word. Pretty much just now he's shown that he can still do it at a higher level of competition. My worry is the jump from FCS to ACC is big, but the jump from the ACC to the NFL is much bigger. And at some point, like, you're not going to be able to just run around like that. Like, even Caleb Williams is learning that there's limitations to what you can do. And Caleb Williams, I think, plays a similar style to Cam Ward, but has a little more natural ability. Is also younger.
Plays better on
Ward,
time too.
Yeah.
Plays better in structure than him. Yeah.
Yeah. Ward, I just don't know if I trust him to be able to adjust. And I worry that this has been like, it's a long con to get one good NFL contract and then he is going to disappear. But there's also a possibility that no, he continues to be great and he is a high level quarterback in the NFL. We just don't.
What do you think, Jake?
Yeah. Well, he's one of only two QBs in this class that I think could run an NFL offense well next year. Um, I mean, he can throw the ball everywhere. My biggest worry with him is, kind of his turnover worthy plays. I think a lot of the time I think he diagnoses things well pre-snap, but I think he just trusts his pre-snap read too much from there because I don't think he does as well after the ball is snapped. And I think, for someone that's been playing college football for as long as he has, it is a little bit worrisome, but it's still an issue. And I also think that he could honestly use his legs more than he does, but just in terms of like being a runner. But I think, it's interesting given how Miami's season went because there was the Cal game, and I feel like so many other games where they found themselves in like a massive hole, and I feel like that makes him think that he kind of did need to play hero ball to win some of those games, and I think that's kind of been drilled into him a little bit, I guess, where that could be something that we see in the NFL where he's just putting the ball in harm's way too much because he's used to having to score 45 points to beat Syracuse or something.
Yeah.
But with that said, I mean, him and Sanders for me are both head and shoulders above the rest of the class. And I agree. I don't think should be a top 5 pick. I think he is a top half of the first round pick, obviously, but I think he will get picked by either the Giants or the Raiders, whichever team doesn't take Sanders. Which is a little high for him, but it's one of those drafts where I think the Giants and the Raiders, I think, really want a QB, and I could see whichever one has a second pick, if Sanders goes first, or if it ends up with Sanders going first, I think whichever team gets second will take him. But
so admittedly, I have now. This isn't necessarily where I'd be willing to draft him, but if I'm just grading him as a player, I have an early day 2 grade on Ward. I think that there's too many things that I worry about translating for me to give him a true first round grade. But I would take him in the teens somewhere in the first round. Like that's where I'd be comfortable drafting him because of the physical ability and some of the stuff he's shown. But that's part of the problem. Is I think if he got drafted in the teens or early 20s to a team that actually has a baseline of play for him to play with, he'd probably have a good chance of being successful.
Yeah.
If he gets drafted to the Giants, or no offense to the Raiders, there's more likely a chance that he has to continue to play the hero ball that he has done throughout his career, and it doesn't work in the NFL, right? Like it doesn't work as well. So it's tough with him. I hope that he ends up in a good situation, but I doubt he will just based on how this class looks right now. But yeah, he's just very much boom or bust in a lot of ways, and I think that's kind of ultimately the issue with him. I will say one of the ugliest interceptions I've seen in a while was in that Virginia Tech game, where I'm like, what? They were throwing. It was in the red zone, and he just kind of like straight up threw the ball to a corner that was just hawking the entire time, and I'm like, what in the world are you doing, dude? Now, to his credit, he did track that dude down and tackle him, which was pretty impressive because he's a good athlete. But like he just has some of those moments where it's just like he either doesn't see a defender or he just like, I don't give a crap, I'm throwing the ball in there anyway type of stuff. And I'm like, okay, but very fun player to watch. Certainly going to be interesting to see how he goes throughout the draft process. We'll kind of see what teams ultimately think of him from there. And number 1, of course, Shedeur Sanders. Yeah, right. Future Raider, guaranteed future Raider, Shedeur Sanders of Jackson State and Colorado. With Sanders, I think the thing for me that ultimately gives him the edge is that he doesn't have the same physical tools that Cam Ward has. He doesn't have the same arm talent that he has, but he plays quarterback in a way that I'm confident is going to translate to the next level to at least make him a starting caliber player. And in a draft class that lacks that gets you my first kind of ranking here. Like that's why you're number 1 for me. I don't see a way where he's truly bad. Like can't play him. He doesn't work at the next level. Like I don't see that with him. I think the accuracy is too good. I think despite the high sack rate and the high pressure numbers and everything, I think he manages pressure well. He understands how to deal with that stuff. He's handled it as well as you could considering how often he's pressured. in Colorado the 2 years he's been there. And he just plays the position in a way where I'm confident if you give this guy talent around him, he will try to maximize that talent. We've seen what he's done with Travis Hunter, obviously, as one of his top receivers. With the rest of the guys that they've gotten for him in Colorado, he's played in an offense with a guy that has a lot of NFL experience. Pat Shurmur has been his offense coordinator this past year. He's set up well to be a successful NFL quarterback. Now, do I think he's worth the first overall pick? Absolutely not. In a normal draft. However, in this draft, where the teams that are going to be drafting probably number 1 or number 2, obviously Giants most likely or the Raiders, they desperately need somebody who can play quarterback, and that means they're probably going to take him. And I think that if he goes to the Raiders, you do have Bowers and you have Jacoby Myers, who's a solid receiver. You can maybe get some other guys in the room to help him out a little bit. I think that there's a chance for success there for sure. But he, again, is the only guy to me that I think could walk into the NFL and actually have a solid chance to be successful early on.
Yeah. And that, to me, that's why I do have like a legit top 5 grade on him. I think in any year, just because the floor is so high and so rock solid. Like, I really don't see any universe in which he is not, at least a top 20 quarterback in this league consistently. I really don't see it. Like, I think that's like his floor is like a low end start. Like, if he was a bust, he'd still be a low end starter in the NFL. Now I do think his ceiling is like fringe of the top 10. But I feel pretty good that he's going to probably be a top 15 quarterback in this league for most of his career. And I think that's what really is nice about him is what you're going to get. Because the things that you need to work right away, the footwork, mechanics, excellent. Recognition of coverages is really high for a rookie. Reads defenses well, especially the way defenses really tried to change things up post-snap. He was still able to diagnose it despite having no time at Colorado, which I think NFL offensive line he has is going to be better. Yeah. And, not the arm talent is obviously not like it's not like the top of the class that we saw last year. Same with the athleticism, but they're good enough. They're good enough.
Yeah, I think that they are NFL caliber in both regards, at least, if not a little bit more with him. So, yeah, the main reason I would not take him normally as high as he's going to be taken is just because I don't, like I said, think the ceiling is top 10 quarterback in the NFL. And if it is, it's barely, like you said, Dalton, like maybe up in there. But I think he'd have to become like a Jared Goff level, like quarterback in terms of the mental side of things to be able to get there, especially because he doesn't even have the arm talent that a guy like Goff has, right?
Yeah.
So I think that that's kind of the ultimate thing with him. But again, in a class where if you need a starter, like next year specifically, you're probably not getting one unless it's him. Like Ward could obviously come in and play, but I don't know how successful he'd be early on, depending on the kind of offense and how much you have around him. But Sanders, I'm not really concerned about his ability to play and then also manage the game well enough as a rookie to play. So
yeah. My only concerns about him are if at Colorado he had to do a lot. He had to really carry the team, and I hope that didn't cause any. He's going to have to adjust it. Like, I don't have to be the only reason why we win. Also, one thing that did bother me at times, like preseason this year, is kind of how vocal he was at times about the offensive line struggles.
Yeah, that'll get you in trouble in the NFL.
Yeah, exactly. Now, I mean, he does seem like the maturity does seem like it's not that much of a concern. Like,
it's overblown, I think, a little bit for sure.
I think so, but it is an adjustment in the NFL. But I still feel good enough about him that those things don't scare me off.
What do you think, Jake?
Yeah, I hope he goes to my Raiders. He's I think easily the best QB in the class. Two things that stand out the most for me, and part of the reason I feel so high about him, one of them is that he as you guys mentioned, played behind a terrible offensive line
Yeah.
and
Certified not good.
certified ass.
Right.
And um, his the things that I worry about the most with him, and I think a lot of other people worry about the most, is kind of his pocket presence. He can kind of drift sometimes. Um, I don't think he utilizes his athleticism enough in the pocket, and he played behind one of the worst lines that I've seen in college in a while, and he still played really well. And so for me, I think that says a lot. That you know he's playing behind a bad line, and some of his biggest weaknesses are his ability to have like a bad pocket presence, but he still is able to play well. And another thing that really stands out to me is his mental toughness. I think
Yeah.
he's a very very confident quarterback, and I trust him more if he gets drafted and he goes through some early struggles to be able to
Figure
remain
out.
calm and kind of work through it than some other quarterbacks on this list. Like I would trust him late in the game. I trust him if he's going through some of those rookie season struggles. I think he's more mentally tough than some of the other guys on this list. Um, and yeah, I agree that his ceiling isn't necessarily like I don't think he will become a top 5 QB in the league or anything like that. But I could see top 10. I could see like a top 7 QB or top 8 QB, something like that. And I think um, for a team like the Raiders or Giants, who's probably going to end up drafting him, I don't see how any other team would draft him. Um, I think he's a safer pick than most like top 5 QB picks in recent years, just because of that mental toughness. I think he's more built for that pressure, if that makes sense. Um,
Yeah, he's been literally pressure cooked into being an
yeah,
NFL quarterback, I think,
yeah,
in a lot of
I feel like
ways.
that stands out more to me than it has for other QBs. So the Raiders have some work to do on the offensive line, but they have some weapons. But it's not the
Yeah.
greatest system or situation to be put into as a rookie. The Giants also not a great situation, but I do
Yeah.
trust him more than a guy like Ward to be able to work through that.
That's kind of my thing. Like that's why I think if you are a team looking for a quarterback, if you're going for like, I want to make sure this guy is not a problem for me. Like I may end up not being able to maximize him because of the fact he doesn't have all the physical tools, but it's not going to be because he can't play. It's going to be because we can't do enough around him. Like I
Yeah,
don't want the failure to come from picking the wrong quarterback. I want it to come from not being able to do the rest of the stuff right. Because if you do everything else right and your quarterback sucks, that's the worst feeling in the world. Because it's like I did all the other stuff right, I just can't find a damn quarterback, right? Like that's what's tough. So it's like with him, I think you get a lot more of that floor that you were talking about, Dalton.
Yeah. Like he's
So
one. If everything else is going well, you're going to be in contention. I think he's the only guy in this class that you can like legitimately say that like if you do the other things right, even if you're a team like the Raiders or Giants, if you make some of the right moves, he can have you back into playoff
mhm,
contention in 2 years just because
right.
he's going to elevate he's going to at least steady the ship on offense and not make the mistakes that people like Gardner Minshew and Daniel Jones constantly make.
Yeah, precisely. We have actually a question here from Anthony Manzano. If the Dolphins end up firing Chris Greer during the offseason, do you think they move on from Tua and draft quarterback in 2025? No. Mostly because they just signed that dude to an extension. I don't think he's going anywhere for a while.
Yeah.
Because who's gonna trade for him realistically with that contract?
yeah.
Um,
I think as long as McDaniel's is there,
yeah, I think those two are at the hip until things change, and then even then, like I look Tua. Let's be honest, it was rough last week. Yeah, this past week, it was not a great game from him. But this Dolphins team is also just not that good right now. They're just really not, and that's kind of why I was like, the Texans aren't playing the best football, but I kind of think they're just still better than them, and I want them to win and put the Dolphins out of their misery. Because did we want to see this version of the Dolphins in the playoffs? I didn't want to see this version of the Dolphins in the playoffs. So it just feels like there's a lot of things going on there. But yeah, in general, I do think Chris Greer does need to go. I don't know if anyone else goes this season, but they definitely need someone pulling the strings differently in the front office because there are certain parts of this team that let's just say are not NFL quality. talking about most of the offensive line positions. So yeah, we'll see what they do. But that was definitely a good question there.
Yeah, I just think if Tua, like the only way he's not back next year, or the only way he's gone is if either McDaniel is gone or if a doctor literally tells him he needs to stop playing.
Yeah, just stop playing.
I think
football.
even if that happens, he's not going to stop.
Probably not. Yeah. But yes, you're a Dolphins fan, not a franchise quarterback. Just again, like the problem with Tua is like this scheme, and it's the same thing. Like you could say the same thing with some other guys in the league right now, where like it's not that they're bad quarterbacks, it's that they are limited quarterbacks, right? So whenever you have a team that can just be like, oh, that's a cool scheme of yours, sucks, shove it. We're just better than the scheme. Like our defense is better than your scheme is. He isn't going to be able to change that for you. Like he's not going to be able to make this unbelievable throw that a Josh Allen or a Justin Herbert or whoever can to get you out of jams that the defense puts you in. He just can't do it. Like it's just not physically in his wheelhouse. And that doesn't mean that he's bad. The same way a lot of these quarterbacks we talked about doesn't mean they're bad players. They just have limitations that make their upside lower and make the chances of being able to overcome certain things lower. And that's kind of what you're seeing with Tua. And you've always seen that with him in certain games. Like there's a reason why they're so bad in games against quality opponents. It's because they're quality opponents and they can take away some of the stuff that the Dolphins do that kind of inflates their production on offense sometimes. So
yeah, I think as someone who has watched and quarterbacks that are not NFL starting quarterbacks all year, Tua is an NFL starting quarterback.
Yes, he absolutely is. Absolutely.
They just don't have the.
that.
Yeah, they just don't have that great of a roster around him right now.
No.
Yeah, I'll. If you would have offered me Tua before the season began for the Raiders, I would have taken him in a heartbeat.
Well, yeah, because you guys had Gardner Minshew, who is just bad to attack.
He definitely has his limitations, and I could see how, if I was a fan of a team that he was quarterback for, I could see how I would get frustrated.
Right.
But yeah, he definitely is.
You could be a lot worse off. Let me put that.
You could be, as a Raiders fan, you could be significantly worse. That's
the problem, is you could be a lot worse. But anyway, let's if you guys are down for it, we can jump into. We also have our first round mock. If you guys want to jump into, we can not spend too much time. A lot of these guys we'll have watched some amount of, but maybe not a ton. So this will be kind of our first foray into it, kind of what we think about it. And this will be what we think, of course. Not necessarily what we're projecting. It's a little too early for projections in that way anyway, honestly. Shout out to people who do that, because I don't know how you're doing it at this point. But let's throw it up on the board here. I got the simulator all ready to go. Of course, using PFF's mock draft simulator, even though some people feel a certain way about PFF. It is what it is. I'm going to throw. Obviously, we have all the teams here for the first round. This is one of the few times in recent memory that I could think of where everybody has a first round pick currently. We'll see if that stays that way for going into the offseason. But right now we do. So we will be able to talk about every team a little bit here. Now I'm going to offer you guys, if you want to be a team here, since there's groups of only three of us here, you guys can have odds or evens, whichever you prefer. Now evens does get you the Raiders pick at 2, so there's that. But outside of that, up to you.
I'm good with that.
Yeah, that's fine.
You want to select for your favorite team today as you watch them probably lose? Are they still losing?
Yeah,
I mean, here's the question. Here's the question: Are you gonna give us Shador?
Here's the thing: is
if I don't take Shador, I'm gonna take Ward.
So here's the thing. I think if I'm the Giants, and it depends to me whether or not Dable is my coach still. Because I think if it's Dable, I think he's gonna want to find someone with a little bit more physical gifts than Ward, or not than Ward, than Sanders. I really don't know if they'd be a super big fan of him at 1. I think that they would be more willing to trade down in that situation if they don't like either of the quarterbacks. So I'm probably going to go after it, even though it's my pick here. I don't know for the Giants I'd pick Sanders, because I feel like they are a little too far away still to take a quarterback like him and have him be successful early on. They need to build up the rest of the roster a little bit. So there's a good chance you're going to get Sanders at 2. Let me put it that way. If that's what you guys would do. So I'll give you that one, since, hey, maybe they'll be number 1 next week anyway. Who knows? We'll see how that goes. But let's jump in here real quick. So, again, for me, if I am the Giants, and we're not doing trades in this because that's too many things to think about. If I'm taking someone at 1 and I'm not going with quarterback, which is kind of what I've decided here, I mean, what else do you do but take the best player in the draft who can play a little bit of 2 different positions for you? Especially considering the fact that the corner selections in recent years have not really done a whole lot for the Giants. Taking a guy who can be your number 1 corner and also moonlight as a deep threat / possession receiver for you down the field to complement Malik Neighbors sounds pretty good. So I'm going to go ahead and take Travis Hunter here at number 1, guys. So.
All right.
I wonder who you're taking.
Diego Paiva, right, Jake?
Yeah. There you go, Diego. No.
I'll take
Shador, yeah. So, interestingly, his average draft position in the simulator is 9.9, which, interesting.
Yeah, I think
only
PFF
4
low-key
spots ahead of
doesn't like
Jalen
him.
Milroe. That's funny.
Sorry, what'd you guys say again?
Oh, I said I don't think PFF likes him for whatever reason.
They have him as a first-round quarterback, but they have Milroe and Ward above him right now. In there. Now, I think that because I think that the like Trevor Sikkema is obviously the shout out to him and Connor Rogers at the NFL draft stock exchange, by the way. I think that he obviously being the lead analyst has a lot to do with his rankings. I think he has mentioned that the quarterback rankings are probably going to change when they do the quarterback episode, which might be coming soon. So that could end up changing here a little bit because Milroe's obviously had a rough back half of the season, and he ranked him he had him number 1 whenever he was on his kind of hot streak. So that might change, but right now, yeah, he has those 2 ahead of him. So, but you guys are obviously taking Shador here, so
Yeah.
Okay, we'll throw him at the Raiders. Now, Patriots on the clock for me, number 3. Now, this is an interesting one because now we haven't gotten into our rankings of other positions yet, but I do have some thoughts on some guys that we'll be talking about here in the near future. I think if I'm the Patriots, because the receiver picks have done absolutely nothing for you this year, and you're kind of relying on Ramondre Stevenson being like maybe the second best receiver on the team sometimes, like Hunter Henry being a menace still at however old he is now. I'm tempted to go receiver here, but I'm gonna be honest, guys, and we'll talk about it when we do the receiver class. I like Ted McMillan a lot. I don't know if he's third overall pick good though. That's the problem here. So I think if I'm going like best player available currently for me, I'm probably going Mason Graham out of Michigan to pair with Barmore when he gets back, because I think that defensive front would be just disgusting if you get Barmore back. Him, the way Keon White's played as kind of a hybrid player, that would give them a really high floor defensively. So I think looking at it, I'm going to go Mason Graham here, I think, for the Patriots.
I like that strategy. Just build up the defense and hope it's good enough that you can win shootouts with May.
Yeah, I also want to target receiver in free agency this year for them if I'm there, but we'll talk about that another time probably. Jaguars number 4. What are you guys thinking here?
So I don't know about you, Jake. I personally don't like a lot of the linemen this high in the class. And they do need a corner. I love Will Johnson personally. How are you feeling?
I was gonna say I would probably take Johnson. I would feel more comfortable drafting him this high than any lineman. I agree with you on that.
Yeah. Fair enough. Yeah. Let me throw that one up here then. Okay. We also had a couple of chats more from Anthony here. He had this one, which was funny. Can a redshirt player like Archimede? No, so he has to play another year because he's a redshirt freshman, so he can be eligible next year. But I'm sure there's a lot of teams that wish he was eligible right now, despite him playing 4 games of snaps or something like that in his career. Can one of you guys be my Dolphins? We will be talking about we will be drafting for the Dolphins here later. So I want to throw those up here real quick. But now I'm on the board, the Panthers, who I thought for a long time was going to have to force a quarterback pick because Bryce Young was not a quarterback in the NFL. Now all of a sudden he kind of is. And his last week wasn't as good, but he still had his moments. I'm pretty sure they're going to be rocking with him at least for another year. So that takes that out of the equation. Now the question becomes, do you add to a defense that is completely barren of NFL talent, pretty much, especially with the injuries, or do you add to the weaponry, right? I think considering how he's looked without adding anything, obviously, to the weaponry, I think you can look towards that in free agency potentially. I'm drafting Abdul Carter because who is rushing the passer on this team right now? Jadeveon Clowney? Is that who you're banking on? I don't think so. And as someone who's watched a lot of Abdul Carter, dude can play. He certainly has all the traits you look for in a guy getting drafted this high. So I'm going to go ahead and take him here for the Panthers.
Like it.
Titans on the clock for you guys at 6. What to do with the frickin' Tennessee Titans?
God. I kind of just want to like start over as like an expansion franchise with this team. Like it's
Yeah, they moved once already,
it's a
right?
mess.
So
It's a mess. It
Shout out Oilers.
really is.
Yeah.
Like
They
I don't know
they
if I
have-
want to go Ward this high. We've got the idea of Levis coming back.
If you don't go Ward, where do you think they go here?
I mean, I don't know, but then what's the point of drafting a wide receiver for him to not get the ball to? Do we think McMillan would elevate Levis at all?
I mean,
Maybe a little bit, but I don't think that's a recipe to success for the most part. I think I have a feeling they will definitely want to move on from Levis this offseason.
So you want to go Ward here?
Yeah, I mean, 6.
That's the problem, right?
Kind of high for Ward, but I
That's the
think
problem.
I think there's honestly not. I don't feel that comfortable drafting Ward at 6, but I think if it's draft day and he's here, I think the Titans might.
Yeah. Or would you want to take like a McMillan or a Will Campbell and then just hope that you can get Arch Manning next year?
I do like McMillan. I would not complain about that either.
I think that's the problem. Is like for the Titans, like watching Will Levis play football last week makes you go like they can't possibly play him again next year. But then if they don't, like who are they going to play? Are they going to pay? Like are they going to go try to throw the bag at Sam Darnold or something? Are they going to like get a fringe starter in here for a year and hope that they don't die in the process? Like I don't know. It's tough because Cam Ward. It's kind of like the box thing where it's like, you know, like the Family Guy where it's like, okay, you could either have Will Levis or this box, and the box is Cam Ward, and it could be Will Levis, right? Or it could be a little bit better Will Levis, honestly, is kind of what I think with Ward. Is like, is he a better version of the same type of player? It's like he's going to do some stupid shit sometimes, but it might look really cool, and then you might also throw a 70-yard bomb every so often. Like it's a weird it's a quarterback that I don't know if you're the Titans, can you bank on being the replacement for Will Levis? I don't know.
I know we're not doing trades, but they could maybe draft a guy like McMillan and then try to trade up for like Milroe.
I've heard a lot of talk about like if the Vikings decide that Sam Darnold is the man, the myth, the legend that he is right now, and pay him long term, does a team like the Titans come for McCarthy or something like that?
Interesting.
Like,
I don't.
That's I've heard a lot. Like that's now obviously we're not doing that in this mock, but like that's something a lot of people are thinking about as a potential thing. So, you know, just throwing that out there. But
yeah. So are we going Tet here?
I'm good with that, yeah.
Okay,
Let's do it.
I would not complain if I was
Gotcha. And I get to draft for the Browns, who I want to obviously lose all the games all the time. But for now, I'm going to be nice to them. I'm going to try to draft if we get Carson back. They need a quarterback in a weirder and different way than everyone else who needs a quarterback, but they certainly need one. I'm not going to take one here. I don't think Cam Ward is the right answer to that problem. However, I do think that the offensive line is going to be and has been a major issue for them this year because of injury and regression. And I think taking any offensive lineman here would be good. I think just any of them, because if they can play tackle, great. If they end up being a guard, need that too. They're getting old there. Totally fine with me. If I'm taking an offensive lineman right now, I'm probably still taking Campbell first because I think there's a chance he could be a tackle, but he's probably going to be a really, really good guard if he isn't a tackle. And to me, that just, I feel like that's the best avenue for them to get better because whoever the quarterback is has to be protected better. Like they just have to be. It's just the end of the day. Like no matter who ends up starting for them next year, probably Jameis on like a bridge deal, but we'll see. I'm gonna go ahead and take Will Campbell here for the Browns. Got the Jets, the JET. Now is this the Cam Ward?
I was about to say this.
This the Cam
This could
Ward?
make a little more.
I think it does if Rodgers is coming back. I like Ward to sit behind him for a year. I don't know if I would want Ward to play right away.
You don't want the
Which is weird
Tyrod
considering his age.
Tyrod Taylor bridge year with him behind
That could
Tyrod
work.
Taylor. Tyrod Taylor.
That could work as well.
Maybe.
I mean, yeah, but
Maybe.
you'd need a bridge guy.
Yeah, which he's under contract next year too, Taylor. So he's on
Yeah.
the team. So could do it
Forgot.
potentially. I mean, he'll probably get hurt in like week 8, and then Ward will have time to acclimate, and then he'll
Yeah, that
put
could
up
work.
a couple big games and probably get hurt at some
Yeah.
point too because it's the
Think-
Jets. But
I like Ward. I don't hate Ward here. I also wouldn't mind if we're going best player available based on those needs there. I wouldn't hate Tyler Warren here. And just get a weapon.
already talking about Tyler Warren. We love to see it. We love to see it.
I mean, honestly though, like
I know.
that is an
yeah.
offense that doesn't have a lot of great weapons. I mean, Garrett Wilson kinda.
Devontae Adams
but-
had a big game this week, but who knows
Yeah.
long term? Yeah.
Yeah, if Devontae Adams is back there next year, I'll be surprised.
Right.
Um,
There's a lot of stuff going on with that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think Warren would be whoever's
Oh my
playing
God!
quarterback.
Raiders just
Warren
got
would be.
their second punt blocked.
Wait,
Oh
they
my
had
God!
two.
They just got the ball
punts?
back. They just had a Spillane pick. They just got the ball. What happened?
Nothing, obviously.
The play that just happened is the perfect explanation to this. The Raiders punted, it got blocked, and then the Falcons like muffed the fumble recovery, and then Divine Diablo picked the ball up and started running down the sideline.
Did he get a first down?
No, it still results in a turnover. That was just a hilarious
Gotcha.
play. The Falcons had a chance to scoop and score, probably the easiest chance that you'll see, and they just did not pick the ball off the ground.
This
And now
is
it's more like a 10-yard
That
punt.
was one of the funniest plays I've seen in a long time.
well.
I'm sorry, I did not mean to interrupt you, Dalton. I just
Yeah.
cannot believe
No,
I
you're
saw
good.
two
No.
punts blocked in
Incre-
one game.
This has been a
Incredible
really
stuff.
funny Monday night game.
Incredible stuff. Sam Darnold turning into a bit of a pumpkin. It looks like in the Chicago game, 17-30 for $150 and a touchdown pick. So maybe he's starting not to do so well. He's going to fluctuate. I'm just messing around. I don't really care. Anyway, you guys are
Yeah.
considering Tyler Warren.
Tyler Warren, or I don't even know. Like,
We have a
Defensive
suggestion
line.
from the chat of Nick Gordon. I don't think he's had the year that I would have wanted him to have transferring from Purdue, Texas A&M. The pressure rate's been kind of iffy, but he's a fun player as an edge player. So
yeah,
throw that. Yeah.
the fit for what the Jets need, I'm not sure about it.
Yeah, they have a power guy in Jermaine Johnson that they're hoping
Yeah.
comes back.
I think I would either go my BPA here based on their need, like since they don't need a running back. My BPA here would be Warren, but I don't mind just going Cam Ward. What do you think, Jake?
I would probably go Ward and then Warren. So
Gotcha. Yeah. So we'll give Cam Ward to the Jets
Ward.
for them to
I like it.
somehow mess up.
I feel like if the Jets see Ward available at 8,
Yeah, they'll probably
pull the
do
trigger on
it.
that.
Yeah.
I'm up with the Bears, who they need a lot of help right now. They're bad. I think realistically, offensive line here, for sure. Defensive line is definitely a need as well. Opposite of Sweat, still need somebody long term there. I think they can be a fit, but at this point, they're going to be losing some pieces on the offensive line that isn't already good. With the guys that are here, I'm probably. I mean, Banks is a guy that could play tackle at the NFL level or could end up being a guard too. Like a lot of these top tackles are really guys who are kind of probably hoping to play tackle, but are more likely guards to me. Like I said that in our first show. But with Bears, you need a little bit of both. So I'll probably just going to go ahead and take Banks here from Texas. So
I don't mind it.
Saints at 10, who continue to march to trying to still be good, but cannot quite get there. If you watch the Washington game, very
The
funny.
story of the Saints for the last 5 years.
Yes, exactly. It's currently sitting at 10. What do we think for the Saints here?
Are they running it back with Derek Carr next year?
Oh, absolutely, Dalton. What do you mean are they running it back? They're running
That
it
feels
back
like
with
something they would
everything.
definitely-
Everybody's coming back except for the people they physically can't bring back because money doesn't work that way.
Man, I mean, I guess like the defense, I don't know. Like if that is the plan, I think you got to do something with this defense. I don't know. Some fun picks here could be like, man, God. I mean,
Yeah, I'm drawing a blank.
I can tell you somebody who I think the Saints like historically would love, and that's Shamar Stewart. But it's early for him for me.
yeah,
But I think he's their type. So is Nick Scorton
Yeah.
though, as well as an edge.
Scorton, maybe a Michael Williams or Jalen Walker. Even I think Walker might be more of an edge than Williams, honestly.
Those two are like, I don't know, man. I think Williams has more tools for an edge, but Walker is more fun to watch play edge. It's a weird thing. I don't know. It's Walker, I think, is a better chance of being a combination of those two, like a linebacker and edge, but I don't know.
But like they can't be maybe like Scorton just so that way you don't have to watch Chase Williams play anymore. Or Chase Young, Chase Young. I don't know. What do you think, Jake?
Jake's like, I don't know, man.
I
It's the
don't-
Saints. What do you want me to do?
There's nothing going through my brain trying to find it.
Or do we give the Saints Tyler Warren and just have Derek Carr spam Warren the ball?
That's what Taysom Hill's for when he recovers. That's what he's for. No,
Is he gonna keep playing?
I mean, it's Taysom Hill's so
Did
undoubtedly.
he tear his ACL though?
It's something like that.
Taysom Hill is never going to
35. Yeah,
he's going to play until he literally is told like you're not allowed to play anymore. Like the NFL is revoking your like we're not letting you play anymore. So, but no, this is a tough one. I admit, guys. I think that you could certainly talk yourself into like even like you could talk yourself into Luther Burden. Like, could you talk yourself into him just pairing with like Olave if he ever comes back from his multiple concussions that he gets every year for some reason?
Yeah, Burden would be the kind of slot receiver that Carr has a lot of success with.
So just wanted to throw his name out there, but
yeah, he's a little. I mean, all the receivers, like I don't know, top 10 feels rich for me.
It does, yeah. It's a weird year, but
just because he can't play outside. But man, what do you think, Jake?
I'll trust whatever your first read is here.
Given how bad the board is, and there's not really the guys that their needs tends a little high. I'm gonna say
really fun, you could take Jalen Milroe and just let him sit behind Derek Carr for a year. If you really want to get wild,
take Milroe.
It's very high.
I don't know
if you want to get wild.
No. I'm kind of good just because if the Saints are going to insist on just like trying to run it back every year like this, I feel like the Saints pick is to just go BPA here. And yeah, let's go Tyler Warren here.
Yeah. All right. Let's find him down here. Okay. Tyler Warren to the Saints. Interesting. Dolphins at number 11. Man. Can I just clone Tua with a better brain? Maybe. No, it doesn't work that way. I think to me because they've ignored it so long, and again, I know I'm taking all the offensive linemen because I'm boring today, but God, if any team needs offensive linemen, it's this team. I haven't watched Simmons yet. He's ranked pretty highly here. My top like true guy that I'm very confident is going to play tackle in the NFL is Ariante Ursary from Minnesota. right now. We'll see if that holds true when I watch more of the tackles, but it's a little early for him is the issue. Corner, the top two guys are off the board. I don't really know if I love any of the other corners enough yet. Benjamin Morrison, if he wasn't hurt, would definitely be in this conversation, I think, for Notre Dame, but it's kind of tough with him. Yeah, they're also kind of a tough team. I think just because of the fact that I'm not confident that either of their top edge guys, like Chop Robinson, is going to be there, and he's played pretty well for them as a first-round pick. Done the things I expect him to do, which is beat bad tackles and kind of get stuffed by not bad tackles, but he can improve from there. The health and just the question, there's a lot of questions with this edge group, right? Outside of him right now because of the injuries to the other guys like Phillips and Chubb. I might take an edge here. I think for them, because they have the speed threat with Chop, I think I would probably take Scorton here, just to get a more power player in there in that room to kind of help with that. Because I just don't feel great enough about the tackles at this spot. But the other issue is like how long can you wait to take a tackle if you're the Dolphins? Does it matter if they're maybe not is ranked the way you want them to? But I'll take Scorton for this pick.
All right.
Colts, who I thought was going to be the Tyler Warren team for you guys, but it ended up being the Saints. So this is interesting for them. So what do you think with the Colts? They just get Jalen Milroe just running back with two quarterbacks that are physical freaks who may not be able to, anyway.
Personally, if I'm the Colts, I am running in the pick for Malachi Starks.
I was about to say, I like Starks.
That's a good one. Yep, for sure. Yeah, Starks is a guy that we talked about at Dalton. Like, he is a unbelievable athlete and a great player, but you have to use him right to maximize him, I think. And I think the Colts will be able to do that. And they need somebody in the secondary to improve that unit. And corner's kind of a little bit early at this point. So, Starks is definitely no question marks there. That's a very good pick. I'm picking for the Bengals. I keep picking for my rival teams. Oh, man. I know I'm wearing a Giants hat right now. I'm wearing it because they're the first pick in the draft. I'm going to do that if I have their hat for as long as we're doing this. But I am a Steelers fan for those who may not know. So picking for the Bengals, I guess it depends on who's playing receiver for them next year because they seem to be interested in signing none of their receivers currently for whatever reason that is. But I'm not going to take Burden here because I don't really think he fits the profile to replace any of the receivers or any guys that might be missing. It's tough. I'll tell you who they could really use, but it's early, is a guy like Kenneth Grant in the middle of the defense. It's a little early for someone like him.
Same way, though.
Right, but that's what they need.
But yeah. He is.
It's like that's what they need. Like Tyreek Williams too, like someone like that, where it's like they have to have somebody up front that deters the running game, and they just don't right now. The edge group is kind of a disaster outside of Trandrickson, who they're like, let's not pay him any money because we don't want to pay him any money. I think for me, I'm gonna take. Because their linebacker group has also been very hit or miss this year for them when it's been a strength for a lot of the last few years with Pratt and I can't think of the other linebacker for them right now. But people know, if you're a Cincy fan, you know what I'm talking about. I think I'm going to take Jalen Walker because he could be a linebacker or he could be an edge or he could be both a little bit, which, hey, for a team that doesn't like to pay any of their players, maybe get a guy who can sort of play two positions. I don't know. That's kind of where I'm at with that. I think that could be a decent fit. Yeah.
I think the big thing is you can't have that pick and not go defense.
Yeah, you have to.
I think
have to go defense.
I think Joe Burrow's head would explode if
I think he would defense. Request. Yeah, I think he would request a trade. Does this one even need any thought process for you guys?
No,
is it? Yeah.
No, but it would be really fun if he didn't make this pick.
And Jerry's probably going to trade up into the top 10 to get him.
Yes, I agree. I think he will do so. But this is Genty.
If he doesn't move up to get Travis Hunter, that's the only way he doesn't take Genty is if he moves all the way up to get Hunter, like trades Dak to go get
Yes.
Travis Hunter.
Right.
And then
Exactly.
Travis Hunter plays 90% of the snaps a game and is dead 3 years.
Right. Exactly. So this feels more preferable. I'm gonna take Genty for you guys. Niners. I think this one actually is one that I wouldn't have thought about if you didn't see how this offense has kind of devolved with the injuries and the ineffectiveness of some guys. And I think that Samuel's out the door, or he's going to be out the door. Luther Burden for the Niners would be very interesting to keep that, because let's be honest, if you're going to have to pay Purdy, which it seems like they're going to do, you got to keep the offensive weaponry to the top of the league, or it's not going to work the way that you want it to. We've seen what that looks like when it's not there. So I think, to me, Burden makes a lot of sense. So I'm going to throw them here. Falcons at 16, which, man, if there's a team that should be 16th in the league, it feels like the Falcons are the team that should be 16th in the league.
Especially watching this game right now.
Yeah.
It's still a 12-3 game right now.
Which, hey, you know.
Okay, the Raiders are punting. Let's see if they get a third punt block.
I hope so.
In one game.
It would not, be but they ran into the guy who made the fair catch, and it's probably going to be a penalty.
Oh, so they found another way to mess up.
Yeah. But Falcons,
Impressive.
Jalen Milroe, right? It's got to be Jalen Milroe.
Oh, yeah, you got to take
another
another quarterback, right? You got the plan for 8 years down the line whenever Penix is old, you know.
He's the heir. He's going to sit behind
the heir apparent to the heir apparent. Yeah. Yeah. Jesus Christ. Put Penix in, Falcons fans.
Yeah, Kirk has not been very inspiring.
Who? This one, I don't. Maybe Williams, you know, and you just find a spot for him somewhere. Grant, again, just feels a little high for Grant.
Yeah. If this was like 5 picks later, I would take Grant.
Right.
I think on raw talent, I might want to go Michael Williams here and just figure out the rest later.
They certainly need edge help. They need pass rush help. They figured it out a little bit recently, but it hasn't helped the defense at all. So
yeah, I could definitely see Williams here.
Yeah, and he could probably play a few different spots
for sure. Keep him in Georgia. It's always fun. Maybe just keep him off the roads like every Georgia player. I think honestly, you should just revoke the license of every Georgia player once they enroll at the school and make them use like those scooters that you can buy to ride around town in. You should just make them do that. Anyway, here's that.
Watch out pedestrians.
Yeah, there you go. Cardinals at 17 could use some help on the defense still for sure. The talent level is just not there, but they've played better than you'd think they would. Corners they've had some good play from the corners they've drafted and they've brought in, so I don't really think corners are a huge need. They don't have it here. Tackle is going to be a need for sure because they trade away Humphreys. I think I'm comfortable taking Ursary here. He's my top tackle, true tackle that I have right now. And I think that he would be a good fit for them as well. So I'm going to take Ursary here. Seahawks here at 18, guys. What do you think?
So I was thinking Ursary for Seattle here. With him off the board, a guy that I think could play inside or out, maybe Emory Jones Jr. here.
Ooh, okay. I have to find him because he is.
Oh, wow! Is he way down in PFF?
He might be a tackle for them still.
I do like him for the
Where is he at?
Yep. Yeah. Is he just not coming out now or something?
Oh, I think maybe he isn't, or they don't have him on here. So yeah, he's not an option for us today, at least. So
weird.
Anyway,
so
maybe like a Simmons, maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, I think to me, personally, if I was taking a tackle for the Seahawks right now, because right tackle's been the hole. You hope that Lucas can come back, but the interior's not great either. But Wyatt Milam out of West Virginia has had a really, really good season. A lot of people talking about him. So, I haven't watched Simmons or Milam enough to really rank them here. So, it's kind of what you guys think would be best. But.
Yeah. Wouldn't mind, as a pure guard, maybe Donovan Jackson.
True. Yeah.
I could see that. I think, I
Jackson might be a better I think Jackson might be like the better overall lineman.
Yeah,
Right?
I could
Oh,
see that.
I think he was up a
I'm
little
happy
higher.
drafting kind of
Oh,
guard or tackle here. So
Did they not have Jackson in here
they
yet?
don't have Jackson on here either. What is going on, PFF?
I wonder if is there reports about those guys maybe not coming out or
I
something
guess
that
I
I didn't
don't know.
see.
That's weird.
Maybe.
Um, I mean, I know like right now there's a lot of moving pieces, like
yeah,
right now. So in
Right.
that case, we'll go. I'm good with going Wylam.
yeah,
Well, Milam, Wyatt Milam, however you
There,
pronounce
I
it.
got that. Chargers 19. Colson Level.
Yeah,
I mean,
nice.
yeah, that's
that's the hardball pick. Yeah,
yeah. Harbaugh pick, good player, need tight end. This is pretty seems pretty simple. There you go. Uh, Bucks here. What are you guys thinking for them? They do need corner's a big one, I think, for sure, because
yeah. I
they
wouldn't
found
mind
Zion
Morrison
McCollum,
here.
but
I like Morrison. Yeah,
yeah, with the injury, I think he does fall a little bit, but he's a very good player for Notre Dame, so I wouldn't blame you guys there at all. Rams 21. Tackles, tough spot right now for them. Linebacker, which they don't care about linebackers anyway, so I'm not going to pretend like I care about linebackers for them. Corner, if I'm going best corner available, I wish he had a pre-draft process, but Siobhan Ravel is a freak, and not really their type of guy to me, but like I could see them going with him. Um, I think for me though, I know they drafted a lot of guys at this position or this part of the defense for the last couple of years, but what I think they're still missing is a true like tone setter in the middle of the defense as a defensive tackle, an interior player. Kenneth Grant, I think would be great next to a guy like Braden Fisk, who has been productive, but is just not a consistent, difference maker, especially in the run game. That gives you somebody next to him that, and also with Kobe Durant, Kobe Turner, sorry, two Kobe's on the team, that can have really nice three interior defensive linemen in the middle of the defense there that you can work with.
And I think a guy like Grant would give someone like Fisk a lot more
Exactly.
one-on-one matchups.
Yeah, because he can take up two guys for you
Yes.
on that front and take care of them. So, but Washington here 22.
Washington. So I feel like they're gonna get into. I feel like Washington's just gonna have to embrace the shootout style game, and if you're gonna do that, on the defense, you want big plays when you can on defense. You want sacks. I like the idea of maybe taking Pierce here.
Okay,
Pure
James Pierce,
speed rusher.
pure speed. Yeah, get him off the edge. Yeah, that's the type of guy he is.
yeah,
So,
I like that.
all right,
That's
there
a
you go,
pretty
James
big
Pierce.
Force the
very
other
fun.
team to throw the ball 40 times a game and hope he constantly gets pressure.
There you go. Yeah. Not Dolphins. Broncos here at 23. Interesting team to draft for. They do need help at receiver. Cortland Sutton's been very good. They've gotten contributions from other guys, but I think if Nix is going to work out long term, you need to surround him with more talent. And to me, I don't think there's a better player to kind of come in and immediately help out in that regard that's on the board right now than Emeka Egbuka out of Ohio State. About as perfect of a safety blanket slash slot, play a little bit outside, but mostly going to be a slot player for you. Gets open quickly. I think that would be a really great fit for playing with Knicks, especially there with the Broncos. So I'm going to take him here at 23. Ravens. So I don't have the trifecta, and actually you guys will get to pick for the Ravens and the Steelers. So do that well for me. But what do you guys have for the Ravens here?
Maybe Williams just because of the versatility to guard or tackle.
Yeah. They need help on the offensive line too.
Yeah.
So
I don't like Williams as a first-round pick just because there's so many times where he has gotten lost.
But until we find out if he's going back, if he does come out,
Yeah.
he has all the physical tools that a team would want.
Yeah.
So
and at least a team like Baltimore doesn't have their needs aren't as glaring.
Yes.
He wouldn't have to play right away.
No. So there's at least that. I think that would be a good fit because he could potentially be your replacement, even maybe at left tackle one day, right? So that's something you could think about there too. So we'll take him. Texans. Nixon's been great, and they did. I think they gave him an extension, didn't they, when they traded for him? If I'm not mistaken, I think they signed him to some amount of extension because I'd love to add like a playmaking running back into this group for the future, but I think they've kind of locked into him for a little while here. Guard is such a glaring hole, but I don't love the guards here. I mean, Simmons is. I don't know if he really has guard flexibility. I think he has a tackle. Somebody that could be. Now, I don't think he gets drafted in the first round, but I've heard a lot of things about Grace Abel out of North Dakota State. Those guys typically end up having to move into guard at the next level because they usually don't have the size. With him, it's hard to say. Obviously, I haven't watched anything of him. We'll see if I can get tape on him in general. But this one's tough for the Texans for me. I mean, I could see, then again, I could see them really getting the most out of a guy like Shamar Stewart with that front, the way they have it, because he could be more of a hybrid player then, instead of having to be like a actual edge or defensive lineman. So I think I'll take Stewart here, 25. 26, what do you guys have for my Steelers? What do you think?
I kind of like, might be a little early, but I kind of like Io Manor or Io Manor. I've never been able to say his name.
Eli Io Manor, yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. I was also thinking receiver here. I'm really high on Isaiah Bond. I just love his speed and the way he, despite his size, like actually really goes and attacks those 50-50 balls really well.
Mm-hmm.
I think he has a lot of potential to be a small number one, like still like not just a pure slot. Like I think he can do some other stuff.
Yeah, the Steelers also do have Roman Wilson.
Yeah,
He just hasn't
that's the only
played,
thing.
so
Yeah, he's been hurt, and
not.
I don't know what his future is, but I think he'll be back next year with the chance to
Yeah,
have a
I
role,
think that could stray them from going receiver here, maybe just because I think he was their second rounder last year. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like it's receiver here.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not super familiar with Iumanor yet. What are your thoughts there on him?
I haven't seen a ton of him. I honestly watched more of him last year, even though he didn't come out obviously, but definitely a possession guy. But he also has he has the ability to kind of take over a game. I remember they came back against Colorado, like a 30-point comeback, and he single handedly brought him back. But
he gave Hunter worst day of his career, probably
yeah,
his corner, probably.
Yeah, he's a possession guy who also has the skill set to be more than that, like a true big play threat. But I need to watch him more.
Yeah. Assuming the Steelers are running it back with the current setup at quarterback, Shayne, who would you like as a receiver?
I mean, Io Manor is going to be higher for me initially because I've watched him a little bit, and Bond, to me, I don't think he plays with any nuance right now as a receiver, and I worry about that at the next level working out as a full-time player initially.
The route running's raw.
Right. So I think he has a ton of tools, and it's going to end up working out most likely. But I will say, I would say you guys are the one making the pick here. On the board right now, as much as they need receiver help, probably the player that I would take is Tyleik Williams out of Ohio State. Because they have no true run stopping defensive tackles other than Cam Hayward, who is really more of a base end player historically, but kind of has to be the point man in the run game because who the hell else is going to do it? So that's probably what I would do, but receiver is obviously a huge need as well, and I'd probably lean Io Manor if we're taking receiver.
I can go with that. I'm good with you.
Cool. Green Bay on the clock, which I hate drafting for Green Bay. Where's Brian Maffey in the ATB chat? I need your help here, bud, because they have like all these freaking rules for how they draft players, and I can't keep track of it. So probably whoever I draft here is not going to fit the requirements. But I'm taking Siobhan Ravel out of East Carolina for them. Big, explosive corner. Jair Alexander can't seem to stay healthy. The other corners are very hit or miss. Playing in Halfley's scheme now, when they brought him as fifth coordinator, I think he'd be a great fit. So I'm going to take him here.
I like that.
Yeah, Vikings.
You're going to be playing against Justin Jefferson twice a year and Rome Odunze. Like you need that. You need that guy, and he has at least the potential to be that.
Absolutely. We've got Vikings on the clock here right now. What do we think?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, this is where it gets Esther. I feel like the first round starts to really thin out.
If they lose Aaron Jones in free agency, I could see them going running back here.
I was gonna throw that out there as a potential because
I could also see them keeping Jones though.
True.
Yeah, he's playing well.
But yeah, if
he's playing well,
I think this would be a running back spot, but that's a big if.
Yeah. What's the board look like here? What does some of the defense look like?
Well, I'm gonna throw a corner up here right now. You got guys like Trey Amos, Jade Barron, guys that are getting a lot of love right now. If you're looking at like, throw some defensive interior up for them too. Honestly, like Williams is on the board, T.J. Sanders, Walter Nolan. There's been a lot of love for Omar Norman Lott recently from Tennessee. Guys like that.
I like Sanders a lot. I think just because of his versatility. I think for a team like Minnesota that they have a lot of guys that they like to move around.
Yeah, that defense the way it runs too. What do you think, Jake?
Yeah, I would like Sanders. I could see that.
Yeah, he's a fun player. Bills on the clock right now. They are an interesting team. I think I lean Tyleik Williams here. Their defense needs some help, and I think that they could use a true tone setter in the middle of the defensive line. So I'm going to take Williams here out of Ohio State. Eagles at 30. Who's the highest ranked Georgia player?
Because we mentioned not a lot of nuance to his game, an offense where I don't know if he would need it as much.
Right.
Isaiah Bond could be a fit here, especially if some of these other receivers aren't sticking around. Who knows? Yeah. I mean, it might be too close of a fit to Devontae Smith is the only issue.
They did show interest in trying to get a third receiver when they traded for John Dodson. It hasn't worked out, but they did seem to show interest in having a third receiver, despite the fact that they don't throw the ball. But
he would be everything that they wanted Dotson to be.
That is true.
I don't know. Looking at the rest of the board, it's hard because they're one of those teams that on paper doesn't have a lot of needs. But
the problem too is I think their biggest need potentially is going to be a linebacker if they don't bring Bond back. But they've traditionally not given a single shit about linebacker positions. So you're certainly not drafting one now. I mean, there's no one to draft at this point anyway, in my opinion. So it's they have edges in need just because I guess they always need edge because Sweat, I think, is maybe on his last year, right, with them. Brandon Graham is already done for the year and is going to retire. The rest of that edge group hasn't really inspired a ton of confidence overall. So maybe you add to it, but at this point, you're looking at an Overton from Alabama, Landon Jackson, Princely Mielen is a guy that people like. Not a lot of guys that are definitely first-round picks by any means.
Yeah. What does the edge group look like?
If we're looking at that was who I was talking about there, but it looks like this.
Overton, maybe.
I will say Mike Green has a ton of buzz. Has had a huge year for Marshall. Yeah. People have said that he's probably looking at a first-round pick potentially. I haven't watched him yet, so I can't say that I agree with that necessarily or not. but
Is-
that's someone to keep in mind. But
Is Denied Dennis Sutton coming back next year? For
I
Penn State?
don't know, but he's ranked. I mean, I don't know what you guys think of him. He's way down the board. For
Yeah, I'm
PFF.
surprised he's that low. I mean, I'm
He's-
not thinking about him here necessarily.
He's very physical, and he's definitely got the size and power you want. I wonder if he'll come back though. That's something I can see him doing, especially with Aller coming back and like maybe he wants to kind of go for it if they don't win it this year, which not looking like they will personally to me, but whatever. Yeah, like if you want to go just straight like fun pick, Donovan is Azaraku from Boston College is fun as hell, but he's kind of a tweener type for me, size wise. But I don't know. They're tough for the Eagles. I mean, maybe draft worse Jalen Hurts.
Let's go. Yeah, what do they have? Like, what's linebacker look like?
I mean, Jahad Campbell is their top linebacker right now for, which I haven't watched the linebackers yet. So,
Alabama linebacker would fit.
It would fit. It would fit the mold. But again, I don't. Again, this is what you guys would do, obviously too. So it's up to what you guys would do. But
I think I would probably go best, just given their situation. Maybe just try to plug that need like they did last year at corner. It worked really well.
Taking Campbell then.
Yeah.
Yeah. There we go. Boom. Lions on the clock. Man, they really need edge help because all their edge rushers died or will die. It seems like. I think to me, the guy on the board that I think would be the best fit for them right now. Like again, I need to watch more of him, but from what I've heard, I'm kind of based. Again, we'll get into the class later on with the edge group. From what I've heard, Mike Green feels like the type of player that they would want with the speed, the explosiveness that he's shown. Next to a guy Hutchinson's that is more of the like true like technician type. So I've heard a lot of buzz about him. I'll go Mike Green, and then finally, we have the Kansas City Chiefs. Which, man,
this
what do you do?
Like maybe. Did they just go all in on like these speedy receivers and just take Bond here?
I thought you might think so. So
I don't know. Is that too on brand?
with the Chiefs, you never know.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't think any of the other tight ends are first round worthy, but they do kind of need a future at the position still. To me,
Yeah.
Could they say that Isaiah Pacheco isn't healthy enough or consistent enough, and just say, what if we just take like Omarion Hampton and say screw you, and have a dude who could go 60 at any point? Maybe something like that, but.
Fun Chiefs pick here be like Harold Fannin, though. You mentioned tight end.
Oh yeah, I mean they would make him the same player he's in college in the NFL somehow. So that would be fun for Harold Fannin Jr. appreciators, which I am one of. So that would be fun.
I mean, offensive line hasn't been great either.
I could see a Josh. I mean, he's been sitting here. I just haven't watched him as part of the problem.
I've been watching him throughout.
Yeah. I mean, he could be a fit. They certainly don't protect Mahomes as well as you'd think they would.
No, we might be seeing Carson Wentz this coming.
Certainly might. Hey, if he's starting against the Steelers on Christmas, I don't care if I have to sneak in the game. I got to see that shit. I got to see that. No, but
the problem is he's gonna look fantastic.
Yeah,
probably. But you guys want to go Simmons there?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. That is our mock, guys. So I'll scroll through it here. It's going to say our draft is terrible. Oh, customized insights. Yeah, I don't see that yet. So if you guys want to take a look at what we did, let us know if you think that we screwed your favorite team or made them Super Bowl contenders or somewhere in the middle, which with fans, neither one is probably, they're just going to be like, what the hell are you doing? Or that was what I wanted you to do. But no, we'll do more of these throughout the draft cycle, but that will be it for today's show. Thank you guys for joining us. It's been a long one, as I expected it would be. So, Jake, I know you got to get going, so we're going to let you get out of here. Dalton, of course, thanks for joining me as always. And we will be back next week with a much more fun position to talk about in this draft, running backs. Very fun.